Welcome back to 110 Daily on the 110 Sports Network. Josh Doring is here with me. Mr. Doring, prior to the college basketball season on the Jays for Days podcast, we did a lot of college basketball conference predicting.
We did.
Are you about to give me the same six teams? These people
Nope.
don't know, but and the answer to that question is no for me as well. So this is exciting. Let's start with the ACC. That seems like a pretty logical place to start, but we're gonna, as conference play gets underway here, we actually now have things to look at and data to look at and games to have seen to help with this prediction. So let's start with the ACC. I believe we both went with Virginia on that ACC podcast. Are you sticking with Tony Bennett's Cavaliers? Or are you pivoting?
No, I'm sticking with the Cavs.
Okay.
I think that's the first time I've ever used that phrase in reference to Virginia, but here we go.
The Cavs. just
I,
lean into it, brother.
right. Absolutely. I still think they're the best team in this conference on paper. It hasn't been pretty so far, but it hasn't been pretty for practically every team in the country.
Sure.
And it's still so early, and you don't have your typical scrimmages, your typical practice pattern over the summer.
Mm-hmm.
You've got teams that have played 2, 3, 4 games that were out of commission for weeks. It's just too early for me to really get concerned about anybody, especially a team that's still generally winning basketball games.
Mm-hmm.
There is a big difference between where Virginia's at and where Kentucky's at, to go to the very extreme end.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not freaking out about Virginia yet. And we talked about this when we both picked them. They are the best program in the ACC at navigating the regular season and being consistent night in and night out,
Mm-hmm.
which is what it takes to win this conference. And then you look at the other teams that are the most likely to challenge them. I don't feel good about Duke at all, and now Jalen Johnson's hurt.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina, I'm still skeptical, especially with the guard play and the fact that Caleb Love is incredibly inefficient right now. Maybe that changes. Their interior is great, but
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time buying stock in a team with shaky point guard play
Sure.
and inexperienced point guard play when you compare that to what you have at Virginia. I almost the other team I was thinking about at this point was Florida State, just because I have so much respect for Leonard Hamilton and they look so good.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, I feel that this Virginia team is the closest thing we've seen to that national championship team. We've both harped on this. They've got to be able to score the basketball. Sam Hauser, it seems as if he's not giving you 18, they're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that is a fixable problem. I'll take that over some of the other issues we've seen with teams so far. They're going to be really good defensively. Tony Bennett's been there, done that before plenty of times. I'm just a couple shaky performances doesn't worry me early in the season.
I'm going Florida State because
Okay.
their shaky performances were against Kent State and San Francisco, and that does
Yeah.
worry me. And I am much farther away in my head from that championship team than I was 3 weeks ago. Much farther.
Yes, I would
away.
agree with that. Mm-hmm.
Like I'm almost 50-50. Like I'm right in the middle. Like if you took that championship team and you took the team that lost to UMBC because of their offensive issues, the
Right.
team right in the middle, at least right now, would be this team.
Yeah, this
And-
one could go either way.
Right. And while on paper they're still the most talented team in this conference, it hasn't translated the way that I thought it would, at least not yet. Now you're right. It's early. Excuse me. But this team has played Towson, San Francisco, Kent State, and St. Francis. They should not be on the verge of being 2-2. And they're on the verge of being 2-2. They're 3-1, but it took overtime to beat Kent State. And apart from their 89 points against Towson, I'm not super impressed by their offense. I'm just not. It is. And the other part of this, of course, is that I'm impressed by Florida State, and I am. That's part of it too. I'm impressed by Florida State. I'm impressed by MJ Walker. I'm impressed by Scotty Barnes in a big way. And if there's a team right now that understands how to be super competitive for the top spot in the ACC regular season, it's of course Tony Bennett number 1, and then Roy Williams and Leonard Hamilton are right there neck and neck at 2, at 2 and 3, 2A, 2B. And right now, I like what I've seen from Florida State more than I've liked what I've seen from UNC. They're not going to win this conference if Caleb Love doesn't get better. They're just not. So it's very, very close. And this is always, and if nothing else, this is a conference I thought that is going to be a lot closer than I originally thought. I thought Virginia was going to win this conference by 2 or 3 games. Like that, like I thought they were going to be that good. It was going to be an 18-2 type regular season performance to a 16-4, 15-5 second place type of performance with 3 teams bunched in there. I think it'll be closer than that. And so far, I'm more impressed by Florida State than I am by Virginia. They're 4-0 and they have 3 wins against Power 5 teams. Indiana, Florida, and Georgia Tech. I get it. Florida with the Keontae Johnson collapsing and that just being a weird game after that. I understand that. And Georgia Tech is Georgia Tech, but Indiana's a good basketball team, and so I went with Florida State. I have the utmost respect for Leonard Hamilton, and all of the things that concern me about Virginia most years, a lot of those things are around right now, and so that worries me a little bit.
You can sort of spin those couple games any way you want. Florida was the better team until Keontae Johnson collapsed. You could argue that Florida State, if they're going to win the ACC, should have taken care of Indiana more convincingly than they did. But also, you can't compare that to the struggles Virginia has had. Those are, the quality competition's been much better on Florida State side. So
right.
I was going back and forth between the two.
Sure.
I would be surprised if it wasn't one of those 2 teams at this point.
As would I. The Big Ten?
Sticking with Illinois.
Okay.
I like the lessons that they've already learned and the bruises they've taken before they get into Big Ten play.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason for them to have a higher opinion of themselves than they should at this point after you lost a rivalry game and Baylor showed you what it looks like to be a truly elite team. I just love the top-end talent. That freshman class is just going to get better, which is the other part of this for me. I still have the same questions about Iowa. I don't feel great about Michigan State being the best team in this brutal conference. So your options are running out pretty quickly. I am skeptical of Wisconsin. They're good. I just don't know if they can put together the run they had at the end of last season. I will say I would have liked to make this decision after this Iowa-Gonzaga game.
Sure.
Assuming it happens. Because I'm becoming impressed with this Iowa team. Not that I didn't think I would be. I wanted to see what they could do against Gonzaga, though.
Mm-hmm.
That could change how I feel, but until we see that, I have concerns about defense, the transition defense in particular. I'm going with Illinois still.
So I am still going with Wisconsin for the reason that I still have the same concerns about Iowa and I still have the same concerns about Illinois. I still have the same concerns about Wisconsin, but Illinois lost you've talked a lot about the process of winning, and them losing a game like that to Missouri is exactly the reason that I didn't pick them to win the Big Ten. Iowa still hasn't proven to me. I still want to see them play defense in the Big Ten before I pick them to win the Big Ten. That's as simple as it gets, and that's not their fault. I feel the exact same about Iowa as I did, and I knew I was going to be impressed, and I knew they were going to be fun to watch.
Yep.
But I've also seen their defensive shortcomings like I thought I was going to. So I stuck with Wisconsin. First of all, I don't think their quote unquote hiccup against Marquette will end up being a hiccup. I think Marquette will end up finishing in the top 3 of the Big East, as DJ Carton, Justin Lewis, Dawson Garcia, all of them continue to get better and continue to get acclimated. Theo John, Kobe McEwen, that's a good basketball team, and DJ Carton is awesome. Just sidebar for a second. That team's good. I don't think that's going to end up being a hiccup. I think that's going to be a close loss to a top 3 team in the Big East. It's It's a team that's done it before, and it's a team that's getting more contribution from players outside of the top 5 of that starting lineup than I initially thought it would. It's not a ton, but it's more than I thought it would be. So the Big Ten for me is more of a I would still pick Illinois to go farther in the tournament than Wisconsin, I think, or at least comparable. But I still have the same feelings about those teams largely that I did at the beginning of the season. So I stuck with Wisconsin. Like I said, when we did this early, before the season started, it was really, really close in my head. It's still very, very close, if not closer. But I largely feel the same way. So I stuck with the team I, put my flag in at the beginning of the season.
Yep. That's a good way to put it. No reason to change the thought process from earlier.
Sure. Big 12.
Baylor. Said it before. I feel very good about this. I just am shaky on this Kansas team. Of course, they're very good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not sure they're on Baylor's level. I would have liked to see Baylor have to finish last season, get the experience in the NCAA tournament. Of course, they didn't get that, but I just have too much respect for these guys at this point and what Scott Drew has done. The only thing that I'm worried about at this point, aside from what happens when they play West Virginia with all that size, is how do they navigate this schedule that they've already had to redo and getting this game against Texas postponed.
Mm-hmm.
It's the extenuating circumstances that concern me more than anything else.
Sure. Can I answer this question after I watch Kansas play Texas Tech tonight? Am I allowed to do that? Am I allowed to can we get up and like gerrymander until this game is played tonight? No. I'm torn here. I'm very torn here. Because I picked Kansas at the beginning of the season. And I think I have to pick Baylor. I think I do.
Yeah, you do.
I think I do. I think that Kentucky is the exact type of team that gives Kansas trouble because of how long and stupid athletic they are, even if they're not good. I mean, that game was close just because their arms were in every single passing lane. So, at the same time, Jalen Wilson is better than I thought he was going to be. Like, Jalen Wilson is really good. So, in a weird way, right, I have worries about Kansas, while also there's a part of my brain that thinks Kansas is better than I thought they were going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, Baylor's been impressive. It's a very... And on paper, Baylor should be the better basketball team. I'll go Baylor barely because of this reason. I think I want David McCormack to be a little better. If David McCormack was a little better, I'd be more confident in. If I was more confident in David McCormack's ability to be a game changer against Baylor, I'd be picking Kansas right now. I'm not sure that's the case. Now, Baylor could hiccup because of this, extended period without playing basketball games. And that might be enough for Kansas to win. It'll be super, super close, I think. I still think people largely underestimate Kansas in the Big 12, regardless of who they are as a team in the non-conference. But, they barely escaped Creighton. They barely escaped Kentucky. They struggle with North Dakota State. They're just one of those teams that's going to struggle when you don't shoot the ball well. So I'll go with Baylor, I guess. I don't feel great about it, which is a weird thing to say about Baylor. And that's mostly because I picked Kansas in the preseason. But I'll agree with you there. That basketball team's good. I just want to see them back on the floor again. I want to see them, and I want to see them play another good basketball team. Because they played Illinois and they ran away from Illinois. But Illinois didn't play well. Kofi Cockburn was in foul trouble. And then, yes, they ran away at the end. But I think there's a world in which Kofi Cockburn's not in foul trouble, and that is a much more interesting basketball game. But that's not what we got, and Baylor ran away with it. So I'll go with Baylor as well, the Big East.
Yeah, I can give you the other three real quick here.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with Villanova.
Yeah.
No reason not to.
Agreed.
They were shaky against Georgetown, but I just trust them too much. Don't like the rest of the Big East. SEC.
Let me Creighton or Marquette number 2.
Barely Creighton. I really like that Marquette team, though.
I think I agree with you. I think Alex O'Connell will make them better. At least there's another guy that can knock down shots. I need Mitch Ballock to be better, but I think he'll get better. He's just had a rough.
And he had a really good game against Marquette, even though they didn't win.
Yeah, so I'll stick with them as well. But please continue.
I'm switching to Tennessee.
Yes, amen, brother.
I believe in Kentucky at the end of the day. I don't believe in Kentucky to turn this around quick enough to win the SEC.
Sure. And Tennessee's look good once they've finally able to get back on the floor. Yep.
Right. And then Pac-12, I'm going to go Oregon.
Well, you have to because they just got LJ Figueroa. So
right. And they've been there before. They're the one team that has done this. They've got guys from these Peyton Pritchard teams.
And Arizona State's not the type of team that wins conferences.
Right, and I need to see Arizona State put together a complete conference schedule before I think they can win this thing.
No,
I was going to UCLA before Arizona State probably, even though Arizona State's the better team.
Right. I mean, Arizona State, they also just lost to Texas El Paso. That's tough. That's really tough. But right, Arizona State is that team that they're that team that if they get hot could win a conference tournament pretty easily, but and Bobby Hurley's just not the type of coach that approaches things in a way that make me confident in them being able to win a conference schedule over 18, 20 games, whatever the Pac-12 is at this point. So I'm going with Oregon as well. I'll go with the experience there at head coach, and maybe Arizona has the more talented players individually, but I like the talent on Oregon's roster. You add LJ Figueroa to the mix, the St. John's transfer, and UCLA has been, that's where I went at the beginning of this season, I believe, is with UCLA, and maybe not though. Maybe I went with Oregon.
We both picked Oregon.
I think I might have gone with Oregon, but UCLA, the point being UCLA hasn't been super inspiring either. There you go. I should have known that we were going to get deep into that and we'd get through 2 conferences in 20 minutes and have to rush through that, the end of it. That's what we did. Coming up next, we're going to do Humor Me, Please to round out hour 1. You're watching 110 Daily on the 110 Sports Network.